is tingling.
What does the Catholic Church say about abortion and embryonic stem cell research? And how does this oppose what Democrats have to say about this issue?
These are excellent questions and also very valid concerns. Hello everyone, I'm Captain Catholic, and I hope I'm able to address these important questions of yours. This video is actually part of a larger series discussing various political issues. Often, people will ask the question, should Catholics be Republicans or Democrats? Obviously, the answer to that question is that Catholics shouldn't be either Democrats or Republicans. This is because the Catholic Church has many strong viewpoints that oppose the views of both Democrats and Republicans, depending on the issue. So throughout this series, we'll be taking a look at how the views of the Catholic Church oppose each political party on selected issues. Specifically, throughout this series, we'll look at how the Catholic Church opposes the Republican Party on the issues of war and military spending, gun control, capitalism and the role of the government in helping the poor, immigration, and climate change. We'll also be taking a look at how the views of the Catholic Church oppose the Democratic Party on the issues of abortion, stem cell research, euthanasia, and religious freedom. This particular video will focus on abortion and embryonic stem cell research. So, let's begin. The Catholic Church is fully opposed to abortion and teaches that it should be illegal. Let's take a look at a quote from St. Pope John Paul II to illustrate this point. This is what is happening also at the level of politics and government. The original and inalienable right to life is questioned or denied on the basis of a parliamentary vote or the will of one part of the people, even if it is the majority. This is the sinister result of a relativism which reigns unopposed. The right ceases to be such because it is no longer firmly founded on the inviolable dignity of the person, but is made subject to the will of the stronger part. In this way, democracy, contradicting its own principles, effectively moves towards a form of totalitarianism. The state is no longer the common home where all can live together on the basis of principles of fundamental equality, but is transformed into a tyrant state, which arrogates to itself the right to dispose of the life of the weakest and most defenseless members, from the unborn child to the elderly, in the name of a public interest, which is really nothing but the interest of one part. The appearance of the strictest respect for legality is maintained, at least when the laws permitting abortion and euthanasia are the result of a ballot in accordance with what are generally seen as the rules of democracy. Really, what we have here is only the tragic caricature of legality. The democratic ideal, which is only truly such when it acknowledges and safeguards the dignity of every human person, is betrayed in its very foundations. How is it still possible to speak of the dignity of every human person when the killing of the weakest and most innocent is permitted? In the name of what justice is the most unjust of discriminations practiced? Some individuals are held to be deserving of defense, and others are denied that dignity? When this happens, the process leading to the breakdown of a genuinely human coexistence and the disintegration of the state itself has already begun. To claim the right to abortion, infanticide, and euthanasia, and to recognize that right in law, means to attribute to human freedom a perverse and evil significance, that of an absolute power over others and against others. This is the death of true freedom. Essentially, one of the things that St. Pope John Paul II is saying here is that while many things are up for debate in a democracy, the right to life is not. The government must always protect the lives of all human beings. This is never something that can be voted on. It's important to note that the Catholic Church's opposition to abortion isn't just a religious opposition. It's not about imposing a religious belief on others. The fight against abortion is a humanitarian and social justice issue. Obviously, it's an undeniable scientific fact that once a child is conceived, as long as there are no complications with the pregnancy, the child will be born 9 months later, a flesh and blood human being right before your eyes. Denying this is denying a scientific fact. Unborn children are human beings, period. By saying that people should have the right to abort their children before they are born, you're literally justifying murder. There's no way around this.
But shouldn't people have the right to choose whether or not to terminate their pregnancy?
Many Democrats will say that people should have the right to choose whether or not to abort their children. This is an incredibly selfish idea for society to promote. There is never a time when anyone should have the right to choose to murder another human being. When a person chooses to, we'll just say, engage in relations, they have to acknowledge that a child could be conceived as a result of their choice, whether or not they plan to have that child. Just because a person did not plan to have a child does not mean that that person has the right to murder the child. As I've mentioned previously, the Catholic Church teaches that government intervention is necessary to protect immigrants, the poor, victims of gun violence, and other vulnerable populations from harm. Likewise, the Catholic Church teaches that government intervention is necessary to protect the unborn. In all situations, the Catholic Church teaches that the government must be consistent in protecting all human beings, from conception to natural death, so that all people can live with the freedom to have a healthy life and all the basic rights that God intended for us to have. So the Catholic Church opposes abortion for the same reason it supports government anti-poverty programs, to protect human life. It's ironic to see that both the Democratic and Republican parties recognize that government intervention is necessary to protect human life. However, both parties only recognize this for certain issues. For example, it's very self-centered for a wealthy person to say, well, I have the right to have as much wealth as I want, even though the fact that I live in absolute excess means that poor people will continue to be poor. It's incredibly selfish for society to promote an idea such as this, because it is literally favoring somebody's selfish lifestyle choices over someone else's basic needs. The Catholic Church recognizes that in this situation, redistribution of wealth is needed to an extent, and so the Church teaches that the wealthy should be taxed in order to provide for the needs of the poor. Democrats usually recognize and agree with government intervention in this situation to protect human life, but Republicans usually do not. However, on the other hand, abortion advocates are promoting a very selfish idea when they promote the idea that, hey, I can live whatever lifestyle I want. I can do it with anyone at any time, and if I end up pregnant, I'll just murder my child if that's what I feel like doing at the time. This is promoting yet another incredibly selfish attitude. This attitude values a person's selfish lifestyle choices over the rights of the unborn child to live. It's literally promoting selfishness over the basic human rights of another human being. This is why the Catholic Church believes in government intervention to protect the lives of the unborn. Many Republicans recognize and agree with this, but most Democrats do not. So in summary, Democrats don't care about people before they're born, and Republicans don't care about people after they're born. It's a shame that there isn't a political party that believes in government intervention to protect all human life, from conception to natural death. Also, before we move on from abortion, just to be clear, the Catholic Church is not at all saying that all people who have abortions are selfish, horrible people. Instead, it's selfish for society to promote the idea that people can just have sex whenever they want and then abort their own children if they end up having an unwanted pregnancy. The woman and her partner then fall victim to the immoral option that society has presented them with. It is the fault of society for promoting abortion and for making it possible to obtain one. Let's take a look at another quote from St. Pope John Paul II to illustrate this. But responsibility likewise falls on the legislators who have promoted and approved abortion laws and, to the extent that they have a say in the matter, on the administrators of the healthcare centers where abortions are performed. A general and no less serious responsibility lies with those who have encouraged the spread of an attitude of sexual permissiveness and a lack of esteem for motherhood, and with those who should have ensured, but did not, effective family and social policies in support of families, especially larger families, and those with particular financial and educational needs. Finally, one cannot overlook the network of complicity which reaches out to include international institutions, foundations, and associations which systematically campaign for the legalization and spread of abortion in the world. In this sense, abortion goes beyond the responsibility of individuals and beyond the harm done to them, and takes on a distinctly social dimension. It is a most serious wound inflicted on society and its culture by the very people who ought to be society's promoters and defenders. As I wrote in my letter to families, we are facing an immense threat to life, not only to the life of individuals, but also to that of civilization itself. We are facing what can be called a structure of sin, which opposes human life not yet born. So as you can see, One of the things that St. Pope John Paul II wrote about in this quote is that society needs to find ways to prevent people from wanting to have an abortion in the first place. For instance, when a woman living in poverty finds herself unexpectedly pregnant, she might worry that she might not be able to financially support her child that she didn't even plan on having to begin with. Because of this, she may consider having an abortion, even though deep down she may want to keep the child. However, in her mind, her poverty may make her feel as if she has no other option but to terminate the pregnancy, even though she may not want to. Therefore, the Catholic Church would like to see society provide financial stability for such women, so that they wouldn't even consider having an abortion. So the Catholic Church teaches that the government must help these mothers financially in order to support the child. This can be done through the various government anti-poverty programs I mentioned before. In this situation, government intervention would prevent countless women from even seeking an abortion in the first place. So in this instance, we actually see the politics of Democrats and Republicans blending together. Republicans oppose abortion, but they usually aren't willing to help women who are considering abortions through government anti-poverty programs. On the other hand, Democrats are usually willing to help impoverished people, but they don't want to protect the rights of unborn children to live. If only they could kind of flip-flop somehow or take ideas from each other.
All right, what topic is next?
Next up is a related topic: embryonic stem cell research. The Catholic Church's views on embryonic stem cell research oppose the Democratic Party's views on this issue. Let's take a look at a quote from the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. Stem cell research has captured the imagination of many in our society. Stem cells are relatively unspecialized cells that, when they divide, can replicate themselves and also produce a variety of more specialized cells. Scientists hope these biological building blocks can be directed to produce many types of cells to repair the human body, cure disease, and alleviate suffering. Stem cells from adult tissues, umbilical cord blood, and placenta, often loosely called adult stem cells, can be obtained without harm to the donor and without any ethical problem, and these have already demonstrated great medical promise. But some scientists are most intrigued by stem cells obtained by destroying an embryonic human being in the first week or so of development. Harvesting these embryonic stem cells involves the deliberate killing of innocent human beings, a gravely immoral act. Essentially, the bishops are saying that the Catholic Church is completely fine with adult stem cell research. Adult stem cell research has proven to be beneficial, and it certainly doesn't harm anyone in any way. However, embryonic stem cell research is considered unacceptable by the Church. The bishops continue, some researchers, ethicists, and policymakers claim that we may directly kill innocent embryonic human beings as if they were mere objects of research, and even that we should make taxpayers complicit in such killing through use of public funds. Thus, while human life is threatened in many ways in our society, the destruction of human embryos for stem cell research confronts us with the issue of respect for life in a stark new way. Now let's take a look at a concrete example of when the Catholic Church and the Democratic Party disagreed on this issue. In March of 2009, Democratic President Barack Obama rescinded the limits for federally funded embryonic stem cell research, and he authorized the National Institutes of Health to publish new guidelines for funding stem cell research, which required the destruction of live human embryos. The draft guidelines were published by the National Institutes of Health in April of 2009. Among these guidelines, it was proposed that the federal government, for the first time ever, would spend taxpayers' money to encourage the destruction of living human beings in order to obtain research material. The offer of federal grants for embryonic stem cell research would then give researchers an incentive to destroy embryonic human beings for new stem cell lines. So obviously, the Catholic Church and the Democratic Party were at odds during this event. Democrats were essentially trying to use taxpayers' money to do something that goes against the beliefs of Catholics. Alright, so that just about ends our coverage on how the Catholic Church's views on abortion and embryonic stem cell research oppose the views of Democrats on this issue. Be sure to check out any of the other videos in this series to see how the Catholic Church opposes each political party's views on other selected issues. So, what were your thoughts on the issues presented in this video? Please feel free to discuss your thoughts on these issues in the official Captain Catholic Facebook group, Captain Catholic Wants You. All people of goodwill are welcomed and encouraged to join the discussion, regardless of your religious or political views. Please just remember to be respectful and kind to all people in the group, regardless of whether or not they agree with your views. Also, feel free to check out the official Captain Catholic website, CaptainCatholic.com, for more videos. And before we go, just one final thought on this video. Please be aware that in this video, I was not attempting to give you a comprehensive summary of the Catholic Church's teachings on these issues. That would take hours, even more time than I wasted of yours already. So for time's sake, I tried to simply give you a few brief quotes that effectively highlighted some of the Catholic Church's teachings on these issues. Nevertheless, despite being brief, I'm sure these quotes show you how the Catholic Church directly and clearly opposes views held by both the Republican and Democratic parties. So hopefully you can use this video as a starting point to learn more about the Catholic Church's teachings on these issues in depth. Thank you so much for watching. And regardless of whatever your personal views may be, I will be sure to keep you in my prayers, and I wish you a fantastic day. Peace be with you.